In order to generate maximum pelvic velocity speed on the downswing, we need to understand the optimum point in the backswing when the pelvis stabilizes to commence the loading phase between the pelvis and the upper body. Now we need to recognize that we're trying to stretch and load the muscles as opposed to create tension and restriction at the top of the backswing that would impede on our ability to downswing load to generate this speed. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about some findings that I've made based upon a research that I've done of 20 players to help explain to you the importance of knowing the optimum place to stabilize. So to research this, I began by measuring players with pelvic velocity speeds above 450 degrees per second. And I wanted to examine if their pelvis stabilized at a different point in the backswing compared to those players with pelvic velocity speeds below 300 degrees per second. So on the screen is an example of a graph measuring X-factor stretch or spine rotation. So let me explain it to you. We've got the address position, top of the backswing and impact. And the numbers on the left-hand side are measuring degrees of separation between the pelvis and the upper body. So in this example here, the player starts with the upper body open to the pelvis by just over 10 degrees and get realigned at about a third of the way through their backswing, and then goes into X-factor stretch all the way to the top of the backswing, reaching a separation of just over 45 degrees. But what we can see on the graph is the X-factor stretch increasing through the early stage of the downswing as a result of the pelvis starting the downswing before the upper body. And this is known as downswing loading. So the research measured was based upon 20 players. 10 players with speeds of 450 degrees per second and higher, and 10 players with speeds of 300 degrees per second and slower. Now the graph shows the X-factor stretch between the address position and the top of the backswing. The red line refers to the players with higher velocity speeds, and the green line refers to the players with slower velocity speeds. Now the data clearly identifies the slower velocity players creating X-factor stretch immediately and rapidly, indicating a tendency to stabilize the pelvis at the start of the backswing, compared to the higher velocity player who allows their pelvis to move almost immediately and then stabilize halfway back. Now this enables the player with higher velocity pelvis speed to continue their X-factor stretch through to the top of the backswing, compared to the slower speed velocity player who reaches their maximum stretch halfway through their backswing, causing restriction and tension and the inability to continue the X-factor stretch, resulting in the pelvis being dragged, which then proceeds to reduce the X-factor stretch towards the end of the backswing. So to achieve this optimal backswing, we need to predetermine the amount of pelvis turn that's going to be required in order for us to complete the upper body turn without there being any restriction or tension. So for example, to do this, if our pelvis is required to turn 50 degrees, then we know that 50 degrees needs to be achieved by the time we reach halfway back. What we need to understand though is that when we swing back, the club mustn't track this pelvis turn. The pelvis must stay on its own independent path to the arms, otherwise the club is going to get trapped inside us halfway back. So the findings do indicate a significant difference for players at a higher pelvic velocity speed, most notably the point at which they stabilize the pelvis in the backswing is much later, which gives them the ability to complete the backswing without tension or restriction, to be able to create a significant X-factor stretch whilst being able to increase that stretch on the downswing as a result of the lack of tension or restriction at the top.